Do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start the meeting. Okay, we're going to start with the discussion. I've asked Tony and Rich to kind of paint a picture for us of what in the plans that are being proposed, which are still, as I understand it, quite tentative for the sex store and the post office. What are the issues that are going to be, looks like they're going to be raised for our determination and our role as planning board? And so with that, I'll turn it over. I don't know whether you guys have coordinated and who's going to speak first, or who's
I'll speak first. Hi, everybody.
Hi, good to see you.
Nice to see
I'm back again.
We miss you.
Thank you. Everybody knows that we had the meeting last Friday. Tony Pasca made the presentation and gave everybody a big picture view of what is proposed at the general store and at the post office. After that happened, Richard Warren and I had a Zoom meeting, a very long Zoom meeting yesterday afternoon with Tony Pasca and his associate Beth. And during that meeting, we focused on issues that would overlap into areas of particular interest that you might maintain during site plan review. So for example, the primary issue or start off issue yesterday was the proposed use of the premises, not the post office side, but the general store side. This would include, among other places, the covered front porch and the gravel patio in the back that was not at all explained last Friday. The issue of the proposed use relates not just to the fact that it's a non-conforming use, that there are limitations under our code with what you can do to a non-conforming use, but also in particular, in this case, to a worrisome relationship between any proposed use and parking out on the street. This was not addressed at all last week. We suggested to Tony Pasca that any application that would proceed would require some kind of a parking analysis that would address squarely what happens if a patron that in the past used a parking space, went in to pick up his mail, might have bought a cup of coffee, said hello to a neighbor, got back in his car, and that parking space was then used in that style or capacity, plus or minus a half a dozen times within an hour, if not more. There never has been an overflow of available parking in that area. If anything, as of COVID, there's been a shortage of parking. Now imagine that same customer that in the past would have been in and out in less than 10 minutes, having accomplished all of his business, now is going to buy a croissant, a cup of coffee, and sit on that gravel patio in the back, or perhaps someplace else in the building or on the building premises. And instead of leaving within minutes, won't leave for over an hour. That means that there's 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 people who are looking for a parking space. It's not going to be available to them. In addition, on the east side, the parking is limited in terms of duration, 15 minutes. I don't think anybody on the applicant side had looked into that. So we've asked them to look into that squarely. In addition, and this corresponds to our concerns about the use. On the one hand, Tony Pasca said the Grays are not in the food service business, and that's not the direction that they're going. They're not going to replicate Pierre's in any particular way. On the other hand, there's an uncertainty as to the proposed use. So to resolve our concerns, we have told Tony Pasca that in order for any application to proceed, we're going to need detailed floor plans for all of the space indoors and outdoors of the building. So that would include the front porch, that would include the back gravel area, and that would include all of the first floor, all of the basement. We did not focus on the upstairs. And the reason is that we were told by Mr. Pasca that if any element of the village government does not want to proceed, the Grays to proceed with the use of the second floor, they will not proceed with the use of the second floor. That just be canceled as any part of the plan. An issue that is in the background here that only people like Richard Warren or Brian Egan or me might find interesting is that a postal service, a post office, is a federal facility. It's exempt from local land use controls. Now, having said that, it's exempt from local land use controls, but this particular post office is married to the general store. In fact, the marriage will go on forever, given the design that was described to you, and there was some discussion about this last Friday, where the entry to the post office would now be the entry to the general store. So it's hard to say that any use of the post office is excluded from land use controls if it's married in the manner that it is to the general store. But we haven't resolved that issue at all. At the same time, even if it were exempt from local land use controls, it's not exempt from CEQA. The problem is that we do not, or we have not yet been able to determine whether this is a type 1 requiring environmental review, or a type 2 where no environmental review is necessary, or an unlisted action. In the midst of that analysis is the fact that the structure is a listed contributing structure on the village historic inventory. And so it could be, under that analysis, a type 1. But the problem is, it is not clearly a type 1 because of the language that's in CEQA. We're still working on this. We haven't decided. What's important is if it is determined that it is either type 1 or unlisted and not type 2, then you are the board that is going to have to handle the CEQA side of that. And so this is something that we're going to be paying attention to. Another issue that we discussed at some length was the temporary relocation and closure of the post office. We reviewed the potential sites within the village, and a point that Richard and I made absolutely clear in yesterday's meeting was that the applicant should not even think of allowing the post office to relocate, even on a temporary basis, outside the territorial limits of the village. We are afraid that if that were to happen, given the present administration of the post office in Washington, it would not be beyond the possibility that the post office would never come back. If that were to happen, it would completely complicate this application, because now we would have a general store doubling in size effectively as a non-conforming use, and it would become a regulatory disaster for everybody. So we made clear they must stay within the village, and they thought that was helpful information that they were not aware of before. I think you all already know that 3 boards will be involved here. One is the AHRB, one is your board, and one is the ZBA. In the nature of the process, the most orderly way to proceed would be that the AHRB would have the first look at the proposed plans. Their jurisdiction or their authority is set forth in our code. It's in very clear terms. It's in 2 subsections, and then those subsections incorporate the guidelines of the Secretary of Interior, and the board, the HRB, is familiar with that. They have received a series of memos from me on that point, and I'm hoping that they will be able to address in a conclusive and clear manner their view of the present plans when they meet on June 6th at 9:30 a.m. You are the second board. You will handle site plan. You've done that many times. The differences here will be the parking problem. I doubt that there's going to be a signage problem. I doubt that there's going to be a lighting problem. There probably will be a drainage problem or surface water runoff problem because they're enlarging the size of the building. They're using 0 setbacks. They have no parking on site. There's, given the location of the sanitary system that would be required by the health department at this time, there's no room for a surface water runoff collection or trap system. And so this is an engineering problem for them to decide, but the village will, I'm sure, get good advice on these issues as well. So you would be the second board to act, and perhaps simultaneously, but not necessarily, the ZBA will clearly be required to act here. There will be any number of variances, dimensional variances, pyramid variances, things of that sort. What is tricky a little bit here is that the AHRB is the first to act. The planning board would probably be the second to act, but neither the AHRB nor the planning board can act finally until the ZBA, which would be the last to act or start acting, itself resolves the variances. In other words, until then, if there are features that require variance relief, the other boards, the AHRB and the planning board, would not be granting approvals absent the prior approval variance grants from the ZBA. That is my synopsis of where we are right now. Richard, do you want to jump in?
Sure, I think that pretty much covers everything we talked about. We did ask them to make sure that when they're developing a site plan that they demonstrate where they're going to provide some sort of waste or garbage control on the property. As the building is moving further back on the property, the space is getting smaller and smaller. And as you know, they're proposing an easement over a portion of the adjacent lot. We asked them for copies of the existing easements and the proposed easements. So this way, Tony would have a chance to take a look at those. As I understand it, they are going to provide a drainage control plan. They understand they're going to need to provide drainage that meets the village code. So they're going to make that work. They indicated that they are beginning discussions with the health department, which is going to be a very critical part of their review process, because if the health department won't play ball with them on this very tiny lot, then they don't know where it's going to go. But they expect that something will work out, and I actually think something will work out as well as they work their way through it. But I think they're going to meet with the ARB, then they're going to talk with the health department, and I think at some point we'll start seeing formal applications come in. We asked them for detailed floor plans that actually have square footages existing and proposed. So this way we can count the square footage up and see how it relates to the SECRA component that we have to actually look at as well. So they seem very receptive to the discussions that we had, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come back with.
Let me ask a question regarding use. What is the current use?
What is the current use?
There is no real clear. Tony and I discussed this. Their C of O does not really spell out any use. And it's just evolved over time from basically a general store, which it was, to then largely a catering facility under the Stephen Spellman's, I guess. And then it was more of a deli market when Bob, whatever his name was, who later went to the IGA or ran it.
It was a T. Tarando.
Right. Then I guess Karen ran it for a while as really just a deli. Pierre came in, he had more grandiose plans. He wanted to have outdoor dining in the back, and we refused that. So we have kind of, at least since incorporation, defined what the store isn't. We've never really grappled with what it is. And I don't know how we do that.
Oh, we're working on that. The function of the detailed floor plans, outdoor and indoor, is to permit us to draw our own inferences as to what exactly is proposed. So for example, if there are tables and chairs on the back gravel area, that's completely new. If there are tables and chairs inside the general store, that's new. If there are tables and chairs on the front porch, that's not entirely new. But in Pierre's time, A, that was by a license, and B, it was limited to 2 places to sit down. When we discussed this yesterday, we told Anthony Pasca that this is a major concern for the village. And the reason is we don't want the use, whatever's approved, if something's approved now, to morph at the instance of the owner down the road into something different and unexpected. Mr. Pasca had no problem at all with what we were saying, and in fact responded at one point that he would even consider allowing a license to authorize whatever the use is that would have to be nailed down with a narrative, clearly worded description. This is not territory that's foreign to Richard Warren. He works with this kind of thing. There are all kinds of manuals that we use, national descriptions, accepted descriptions for land uses. And this is something we can work out. The big problem right now is that I don't think the applicant has figured out exactly what the use will be at all. So we've made clear that sit-down food service is going to be a stiff uphill climb and probably unattainable. Because of the parking problem, among others, and because of the risk that it would morph into a Golden Pear or a Starbucks or an actual restaurant. We also discussed, by the way, the comment last Friday that those large doors would seal off any light emission from the large windows at the back next to the gravel area. And we mentioned that the village will not tolerate an enlargement of the duration of business during the day, the hours of business during the day. We also mentioned that the historic use, at least within current, the memory of current residents, is that it's seasonal. The use was seasonal, not year-round. This is also, the conversation was very good yesterday because we were able to say what it is that we're worried about, what we see as the issues, the regulatory issues, and we had nothing but a cooperative response from Mr. Pasca. So.
Do any of you have any questions about what, as a board, our role in this is going to be?
Yeah, I have a question on the my biggest concern, and probably a lot of people, is the post office. How much is it on us to find another post office or another place to get our mail? The contract that is at the store now, I assume is a lengthy contract, at least with the postal. And how all of a sudden they're going to be told they're going to close the post office. Is this a headache for us? I mean, other than it is a headache for us, but
It is a
do
headache.
we have to find a place of our own?
No, but
No.
us to assist in finding them a site
A suggestion.
for relocation. Rhodey and I have discussed a couple of them in Sagaponic. None of them will be optimal. I've been after their project manager for 6 months now to find out what the size. The post office apparently owns a FEMA trailer that they use as temporary headquarters during renovations. I'm trying to find out what the dimensions are. What's the footprint? Where are the access points? So you get some idea, a better idea of where you could put it. We could probably put it back here in the village lot and the grass area next to it, except for not so much the access, the egress, getting out of here. It can be horrendous if you want to make a left turn.
Yeah.
And that would be a terrible choke point. There are a couple of other places. None of them are optimal. One of the more logical places is the wide verge on Sag Main Street in front of Foster Farm, which has more than enough off-street room to put something there, and it's on a traffic artery that is been equipped to handle or has handled post office traffic for years. It's gonna be pretty damn ugly. And if anybody here can think of an alternate site, I don't know how built out because I haven't been back there in years behind the barn on the white property on the corner. I don't know if there's room there to put anything or not. Another possible place is the corner of Hedges Lane and Fairfield Pond Lane, which is part of the South Fork Land Trust. It's it's right on the corner. It's not farmed by the Fosters. It's just laying fallow. It's in the midst of two construction sites, one immediately to the south and another to the west. Though I think that project may be financially on hold, I'm not sure. But that's a possibility. If anybody else could suggest.
Well, dimensions are important, like you said. And that would be to figure out what we're putting up before we figure out where.
Keep in mind that it might have to be up more than part of a year. I think construction, a lot of times, everybody's very optimistic.
I would think it would be
2
pretty
years.
much for a year.
It could be
They're
up
not
to 2 years.
rebuilding
Yeah.
that, well, they're building the rear of it, but in a year.
Maybe the post office.
The
would be
post
able to work.
office could work because it's not nearly as complex in terms of
Yeah, I see.
the plumbing and food preparation. But I would think we would have to plan for a year. It would be lovely if it could be done, just over the winter time. If it were that, we could ask the town, they could put it in the town beach parking lot. But come Memorial Day, I don't think there's a post office there.
Well, in construction, everything takes longer, and we can all attest to that. Just when what we're seeing in the last 10 years, when people are optimistically thinking, or Kenny Swank, that they're going to get their permits in X amount of time from the health department, we all know things get bogged down sometimes.
So in answer to your question, no, unless it goes on village property like the verge of Sag Main Street, there would have to be some agreement by the property owner, and presumably they would not only be remunerated, but it would be the site would be restored to whatever was its natural state.
Is the onus on the village to find this place?
No,
I mean,
no, no. The problem is there are actually 4 trailers available to the US Postal Service across the entire 50 states. And they have to wait, the owners have to wait for one of them to become available. That's the reason why there is this delay, and they're not all the same size. So they're waiting to be told that there will be a trailer available, and then they will start making their moves. As of yesterday, they had not had any dialogue along the lines that you're having right now, listing out sites. So Richard and I listed out sites for them, including each of them that you have just mentioned. And they thought that that was very helpful. So the answer to your question was, on the one hand, it's not on the village's back to get this resolved. On the other hand, you would not want to let the conversation be astray from the village's involvement. The village should stay involved in the conversation, in particular to avoid relocation out of the village's territory. And I told them yesterday, as I said before, don't even think about it. If that happens, you're not going anywhere with the rest of this application.
it's the applicant's responsibility to find temporary housing for the post office. They have the post office has a lease with them for the use of the post office. And if they can't do it there, they're gonna have to provide a space where they can.
It's their response. And do we know how long that lease is good for?
I think it was a 3-year lease. It was
3 years?
I think they're really still maybe towards the end of the first year of that lease.
Okay.
I'm not sure. You know, Carrie?
No.
I forget, Richie had told us when we met with him, but I forget what.
It was, I know it was
I
a
think he
3-year
had just
lease.
renewed the lease.
Pardon? And it was renewed. I lose track of time, but it was not more than 6 months before it was actually sold.
I thought, yeah.
Um, Parking is going to be what, the CBA's responsibility, or is it partially our responsibility?
Both. And so, and the way in which it will come to you is it's part of site plan review, but also if this is a unlisted action under CEQA, then it will come to you in that respect as well. But then our code, to the extent that it provides for necessary parking, there won't be any parking. That's an area variance. It used to be both a use and an area variance, but now it's just an area variance, so it's easier to handle. It's going to be everybody. One point that I want to make that caught Richard and me by surprise a little bit yesterday is that the village's evaluation of this application is advanced relative to the owner's evaluation of this matter. On the one hand, it's been their project for at least, a year now. On the other hand, we are far further along in terms of listing out all the factors and items that have to be dealt with. To the extent, as Richard mentioned earlier, they have not yet gotten to the border review at the health department. This is going to take a very long time. I mean, don't assume that this will be a formal application ready for review by any of the boards, probably for 6 months. At least I would say 6 months is reasonable. It's not harmful to do what we're doing right now, in particular what the AHRB will be doing on Monday or on June 6th. But we're way ahead of the applicant.
I don't know what the status of the building is at the moment. Could it be reopened as what it was?
Yes. Yeah.
Without making any changes in the footprint?
Sure. Yeah.
Anything else? No, I don't know. I know they have ripped out a lot of the the walls to see what was underneath them.
Mhm.
But could that be made operational as a store again, say for this summer?
Yes, it could. Yes, as long as the use is not inconsistent with the village's understanding of an allowed use.
And the fact that they have done some demolition in the interior does not preclude them from replacing it.
No, no.
We make sure the building inspector is aware of that.
Yeah, he's been inside the building, so
Pardon?
he knows what it looks like right now. but
No, I know he
don't
does,
think
but I think
don't
he
think
has told them that they can't. You
going
can't
further.
replace it.
Oh, I'm not sure about that conversation, but I will let him know.
But legally, since they have done nothing to change the footprint, they could keep it in the same envelope and the same use.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Under our code, they're allowed to continue.
I think if in doing that, you just want to have a clear description about what the use is going to be that's in there.
Yeah.
And then, to me, that was the unknown at the presentation they made to the trustees. And even when we talked with Tony Pasca and Beth Baldwin, is to describe the use. This way, everybody knows what it is. You know what you're proposing. The village knows what's being proposed. The public knows what's being proposed. So there's no surprises. So I would think that you'd want to have a good description of, if they're going to go in and operate, just have an understanding of what it is.
I mean, I was just asking because I've been asked, I'm sure everybody's been asked this.
Yeah.
What are they doing with it? And why aren't they doing anything with it while they're waiting to figure out what they can do with it? And I got the impression from John that he had told them the demolition interior had gone so far that it was beyond the point of any return.
Almost like you just wiped out your pre-existing.
Yes,
Okay.
but you don't think that would be true, Tony?
Well, that's from a construction point of view. It's not from a legal point of view. If they want to put wallpaper up and put in a coffee urn and start serving croissants, they can open on Monday.
Almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if all the wiring has been ripped out or not.
In the part that you can see now, because the tarp from inside the construction tape let loose, it looks like the wiring is gone and the walls on the side you're looking at.
Mm.
Because there had to have been wiring on that side.
But Tony, I could instruct John that if they did want to open for the summer, that, you know, we could give them a building permit to do the renovation, to put it back, to put the walls up, put the electric in, to put in the existing of the pre-existing use or the existing use that was there last summer.
Well, yes and no. I'd need to know exactly what the building permit is going to allow to see whether or not the building permit is going to invite site plan review. So I don't know. I've not been inside the building, so I don't know whether it was so gutted, you know, that they may be changing dimensions or whatever. I just don't know what's going on.
Right, and I'm not talking about changing dimensions. I'm talking about maybe putting the wiring in, because we require an electrical building, and not a building permit, but an electrical.
Let John work it out. with
So-
Tony.
Perhaps something as simple as that, but I'll have John talk to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we didn't hear any suggestion yesterday that there's any plan of immediate use of any kind. That was not said.
Do you think they are aware? Do you think Pasca is aware that it could take 6 months to even get health department approval?
Oh, for sure. Yes, he's asking for a variance. I've handled a particular kind of variance maybe half a dozen times in my career. I was always successful. He was less confident than I would have been. But that's because the health department personnel changes all the time and the regulations always seem to get more difficult to manage.
He told that to his clients that we're
Oh,
looking.
I'm sure he would have. I'm sure he would have. Yeah, they're looking to have the sanitary system off-site by reason of an easement with the adjacent property owner. So that's something that we do. We often have the well off-site where there's no public water and there's no water on-site. The same thing. You go to the health department, there's an engineering review. Richard's office handles that kind of application all the time. And so it's not unknown technology, but they're not they're not even scheduled before the board of review. It takes months to get to the board of review, and they're not there.
If the applicant is aware that they'll be lucky to make it 2024 opening date.
Yeah, the construction schedule is proposed at 9 months.
But
So
that's,
that's beginning to end.
That would
And
be
assuming everything
amazing.
works out well.
That would be amazing in the world of
That would be a miracle.
construction.
Yeah, yeah, but that's not, I'm not measuring it from right now. I'm measuring it after they have all the approvals. The approvals are gonna take months and months and months. So not just in the village, but the health department as well. So,
And Tony, I sense that the easement for the sanitary, they were still working out the details with the owner.
of the easement, yeah,
So
they
that
don't have a
even
document.
that- Even going to the health department, they don't have like absolute certainty of a place to put the sanitary.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
that they still have some work to do on their end.
okay, thank you both. I guess the next scene in this drama will be June 6th at the Architectural Review Board.
Act 2, yes.
Scene 2 of Act 1.
Yes, okay, fair enough.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, thank
Okay.
you, everybody.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks.
Bye, Brian.
All right, bye-bye.
More to follow, as they say.
Yes. John, you got here early, so we'll thought this might last longer. So John is going to give his annual report on the results of the program and his fabulous plans for the future.
What we think's gonna happen. Okay,
No,
just say hello. Look, I'm just come up and say hello. I haven't seen you in a while.
how are you?
How you doing? See you.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
I'm John.
Hi, John.
Really, you know who you are.
Sorry.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
John, how are you?
This is our attorney.
Nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Pleasure.
John, we'll let you go to the podium, and if you've got any displays you want.
Yeah.
It's right here. It's up on the, it's gonna be up on the.
It's the
screen.
document in the front of your book. Also got it up on the screen. It's the deer management, wildlife management.
I'll follow it up there.
Okay.
Okay, rather than just read right through the report, I'll go through it. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, stop me on it, we can address it. We've done this for a couple of years now, actually 4 years. And I want to see kind of what your reaction is to what we've done and what we can do differently if needed. We can kind of scroll through this. This is the same, background as we've talked about before. Measuring if a program is working. When you look around the state and look around the country, there are deer management programs, but there's never any following or consequence to see, is it actually working or not? So we can measure this a bunch of different types of ways, and I use something called sightings per hour. What that actually means is while an individual is in the field, they're counting the number of deer that they see. And then I also record the number of hours that that individual is in the field. And then you divide that out and you get a number called sightings per hour. The New York State DEC uses this. They use it upstate, they use it on the island, but not enough people, capture that kind of data to be able to give this result. We do here. Every single hour of every single hunter that's in the field is recorded, and we take that information, I do the math, and we're able to see what happens year over year.
How many hours a month do they get out?
It's not a month. You'll see the actual number. I think it was 1,600 or something like that. 1,600 hours total. So per season.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the season here starts in October, ends in January. They have a second season from January to April. So you'll see I have all those numbers there, and individuals come. They're volunteers. So I have about 192 hunters that are certified to hunt in Sagaponic. So when they come, they have to log in. On my phone, I see it, okay, I'd like to hunt today. I tell them what's available. They go hunt. When they come back, they have to fill out a Google Doc basically, and I get all the information back from them. If they don't do that, they don't get to come back.
And this is all bow and arrow.
It's all bow and arrow.
I'm new, so.
Sure. There are shotgun permits in Sagaponic on some of the farms. They're limited to areas that are 10 acres or more, and it has to be signed off permission by the state and by the landowner. So there's a couple of places where shotguns can be used. Wolfer's one of them. A John White Field over here is another. Schumann Properties a third. Yep. Down on Sand Dune Court, they can use a shotgun, and also Bridge Lane, which I don't use shotguns on Bridge Lane because there's houses on all sides. So we have to be careful of that. Other measures of success mainly are how you all feel about the program. So when homeowners are not happy, their plants are being destroyed, their trees are being destroyed, they're hitting deer with their cars, their children and dogs are getting ticks, they're not happy. That's my main kind of matrix of how I see a program moving forward. In Sagaponic, not too many people respond. We don't have a lot of residents here calling up, hey, come to my house, unless we solicit them and say, we would like to use your property for hunting. And then they go, oh, we didn't know the program existed. We educate them on it. And then Rhodey and I send documents, they sign off, and then we add them to the program. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down.
We'll get off this page completely.
Yeah, we can go up. Management tools. Basically, what I use that's now your program that you guys own to be able to manage deer. You build a deer management program. And as I said to you, it takes about 3 years to build. And what that includes is finding the hunters, finding the property owners that allow you to use their property, training and certifying those hunters, bringing the village in so that you understand what we're doing here. And Rhodey's been excellent at helping me out when the state doesn't respond or when a homeowner doesn't respond. And if you don't have the village involved, the program doesn't work. I run several other programs on the island, and some aren't successful because the village themselves doesn't back me up. And when that doesn't happen, I don't have the ability to reach out to homeowners, or I don't have the credibility just with my name or my business. They want to see it on letterhead from the village to say, okay, we believe this is part of the village, we're going to get involved. You guys have done a great job. I would say probably the best on Long Island. Other villages that were ahead of you in years, you've surpassed. And now they're saying, what are you doing in Sagaponic that's working so well? So I'm actually using Sagaponic's example in other areas to say, you need to do this, otherwise your program's not going to work. Providing equipment for the hunters. I provide all the tree stands. I put them in, I take them out. I have guys that help me and women that help me. However, I don't leave it up to them to decide where, when, and how. I take all the safety factors into my own hands. I look at each property. I decide what's best, when you should be there, when you shouldn't be there. I text the homeowners that would like me to and say, hey, can you please let me know when you're coming? Sometimes people say, I'll be there. My family will be there. Please don't come during these dates and times. I keep track of all of this and manage it so that the hunters don't end up causing issues with homeowners that may or may not want that to happen. It's a fine line between not telling the hunters how to hunt, telling the homeowners that it's okay for us to be there and the hunters aren't going to cross you or make you feel uncomfortable. So my job is, partially in the field, but I would say 75% on the phones, texting and emailing, making people feel comfortable. Certified hunters. What I do, every single person wants to be part of the program. I send them an application. They give me all of their personal information, including driver's license, hunting license, their license plate of their car, pictures of their arrows. So if they lose an arrow, I know whose arrow it is. And it also makes them more responsible for what they do. If they're gonna let an arrow go, they know that I have pictures of their arrows. And not only pictures in case they change the colors, there's specifications. So these hunters have to be signed up. They have to come meet with me and do an archery certification. So I actually have them take a test. And if they fail, they fail. I don't give them, a chance to come out here and hunt on these properties if they're not competent with a bow or if their equipment isn't modern. I mean, some gentlemen come and they have a bow that's 25 years old and they have arrows that are 4 different sizes. I don't accept that. It's not part of what we want here. And I don't tell them, oh, you're useless, go away. I actually train them and show them what they can do so that they can get into the program. And if they don't do those things, obviously, they don't call me back, but a lot of them do. A lot of them better their equipment and then you come back, do the shooting certification, pass it, and then get involved. Okay, that's the certified hunters. Any questions on those? Scheduled hunts. Every single hunter has to schedule the day they're gonna be out here. They don't get to just come, drive up and go. I know where every hunter is at any given time. And that's important because the police officers will call and say, hey, I have a car on the street, maybe call Rhodey. They call me, I look up the license plate, I know exactly who it is and when they've got there and when they're leaving. So you don't have to worry about hunters just walking through the village arbitrarily and you have to wonder who they are and why they are. We know exactly who's here and they carry a Sagaponic certified hunter card. So if you approach them, they'll present their card. And it doesn't often happen, but it makes the hunter feel more comfortable that they're in an area where they should be. And homeowners, they have the right to go up to a hunter and say, how you doing? Are you supposed to be here? Can I see your card? And if they have it, it's either signed by me or by Rhodey and stamped by the village. So, and we redo them every single year so that somebody can't just give one away. If they do get a deer, I get photos of it, and this is important. I need to know the sex of the deer, the age of the deer, and where it was taken. So I gather all that information. It helps me write these reports. Our hunting seasons. We're in a fortunate position where the state allows us to hold our own tags. So we actually have tags here at Village Hall. So if a hunter gets a deer, he doesn't have to go home and say, oh, I don't have a tag, or I have to wait for one to come in the mail, or go back to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy another one. We have a stack of probably 40 or 50 tags here that they can come into the office, get one, and go right back out again. So they can take multiple deer per day, which allows your program to be more successful. If each hunter gets one deer once a month, it doesn't work. They need to take as many as they can, and we need to be able to supply them with tags. Rhodey's done a great job communicating with the state. I've introduced them, and now the state delivers tags to Sagaponic. We keep them here, and we don't have to worry about getting the state involved or a sporting goods store involved while we have our season progressing, and it doesn't slow us down. Our seasons are also longer than the rest of Long Island and the rest of New York State. We have a normal season that goes from October through the end of January. Then we have a nuisance season that goes from January, essentially all the way through September. We stop our hunting here in April, surely because of the number of people that are jogging and riding bikes in the streets. We're not doing anything illegal. We just don't want to upset anybody. If we keep a happy program, fly under the radar, do everything legally and not upset residents, the program tends to work a lot better. And that's the way we choose to do it. If you have a problem where they say a homeowner is planting a crop, bushes, and they have 50 deer on their property, you can call me if it's August 1st and I can bring hunters out and take care of it. We don't do that unless we're asked. But we have that option, we have the permits, and we have the tags in place that we can come out and do that. And I would come out myself to make sure that it's what we want to do. Okay, scroll down. Property access. This is probably the most important thing. Property access for management, it could be a quarter acre. The deer don't care about the size of the property. If it's a thoroughfare where the deer walk through to get to the farm, that's the best piece of property. You can have 10 acres that don't have any deer and a quarter acre that have 50 that travel through every day. So every property matters. And what we've done here is we've sent out emails to all the residents, and we're able to capture 111 parcels right now that we're using for hunting. And you'll see maps of this later. It's not just in one area either. If we had 111 just on the western side of Sagaponic, it wouldn't work. But we have now properties throughout Sagaponic, and Rhodey and I have been talking about this for years, saying, how do we distribute the hunters so that we don't have the deer get pushed all over? It's almost like if you blew up a rubber glove, you squeeze the thumb, the pinky would get bigger. You squeeze the pinky, the thumb would get bigger. That's what the deer do. They move around based on the hunting pressure. So we've basically completed that this year. We've covered Sagaponic completely. I would like to get more properties involved, obviously, but right now we have enough properties distributed across Sagaponic that the program will be successful based on what we have already. And we did that in 3.5 years. Okay, shared experiences, basically, I'm on the phone from 4:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night with all the hunters. I have a special text line, they text me as they're going out in the morning, when they're coming back. If they have any questions, issues, a lot of times they'll call me and say, John, I'm getting here, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. There's an injured deer that was hit by a car on so-and-so's property. And I'll assess whether I would tell that hunter, go get it and get it out of there right now. Or you know what, we don't have permission on that property. Let's wait till daylight, 8 o'clock, I'll make a phone call and we'll remove that deer. We do a lot of deer removal for Sagaponic. Homeowners would have to pay upwards of $500 to get a deer off their property. This program does it for free. If there's a deer injured, we may put it out of its misery and dispatch it. We'll take the deer off the property, bring it out to the street where the DOT will take it. If the deer is injured, and we have to dispatch it, and we can put a tag on it and still use it, and the meat's usable, we'll use it that. But you don't have to worry about deer issues, whether they're trapped in fences, hit by cars, anything ever again in Sagaponic. I deal with all of them for you. And if the state has to get involved, I'll call the state, I'll meet the state and deal with them. You don't have to send anybody out. It's all part of the program at no cost. Okay, tracking deer movement. This is something that we do. I have cameras in a lot of different places on properties in Sagaponic. So I move them around. They trigger by movement. I keep them away from the house and I tell the homeowner that it's there. So they don't feel that it's, I'm being invasive on their property. So any issues you see, you think you have a lot of deer on your property, I can come set a camera. That camera automatically sends pictures to my phone. So when the hunter wants to go out the next morning, I get all the pictures from the day before and say, go here. It's kind of like fishing and seeing the bottom of the ocean and knowing where to go every day. It's the technology that we use. Okay, scroll down from there. Deer fencing. I try not to get into too much of this in Sagaponic, because there's fences that go up and some people agree, some people disagree. But what it does in the deer world is it pushes the deer into different areas. And it also causes more car deer strikes where those fences are put up. So I pay attention to this for the hunting aspect of it, not for the political aspect of it, not for the farm, not for visual. I need to know what's happening with the fences. So the next year, the deer aren't going to feed in that field. They're going to feed on the properties near it, or they're going to move all the way across the Sagaponic to a different field. So these fences change what I do every time one goes up, I should say. Okay, scrolling down, program costs. I put this in here now so you can kind of understand what it costs you to do this. We've removed 507 deer for $117. It's about $232 a deer. Last year's report explained what all of Long Island did and how much it cost for their programs. And most programs cost $1,000 a deer. Some of them cost tens of thousands of dollars per deer, depending on what you're doing. Here, $232, that's pretty much the cheapest program that I've been able to find across New York State. And that includes us managing all the hunters, us harvesting the deer. I have a cooler box to keep the deer cold, transportation of the deer, and if the deer is not edible, disposal. We don't charge anything for butchering either. On the North Shore, things like that, they charge for butchering. We handle it ourselves. I butcher about 60 deer a year. And other guys that know how to do it, they do it themselves. We also feed a lot of soup kitchens and food pantries. I don't tell the people where they come from. It's something that is personal. So a lot of the deer that are taken out of here are given to homeless people. We did a Christmas dinner where we had 75 people once from the deer from Sagaponic. And again, we keep that to ourselves. It's a nice thing to do. We have homeless families that call me probably weekly, and I deliver venison to them. I eat venison instead of beef, so people think it's a lower quality meat. It's actually a higher quality meat. And when it eats corn in Sagaponic, there's not much that gets better than that. So if you ever want to learn more about that, I'm happy to explain where, what, and how. And we have plenty of venison for any people in the village that would like some.
And we also, you supply it to residents as well.
Yes, I supplied residents, I did this week. Carol London asked for some venison backstrap, which is essentially the top of the fillet, and I dropped it off to her this week. So if anybody would like it, and I cook it well too, so I can help you out with that.
Yeah, great recipes.
Okay, conditions. I have the numbers, I have, yeah, this is fine. One of the most important things to understand about deer management is you need to take female deer. If you take male deer, one male deer can service 100 female deer. So taking a male deer really doesn't help the population. It takes one deer. So what we do is we focus on taking female deer to lower your population. And when you take a female deer to Sagaponic, that stops two fawns from being born. In Sagaponic, a lot of times we'll see triplets. That's because there's a lot to eat. The more there is to eat, the more fawns the deer have. So preventing deer from having fawns the following year is really what we focus on. And when you look at our numbers, yes, we took 507 deer, 411 were female deer. That prevented 822 additional fawns. Deer live 13 years. So if this program didn't start, we would have, just from those original 411 deer, not counting every deer that's been born since then, we have 822 more deer in Sagaponic if the program didn't start. Sure, there would be a mortality rate from cars and things like that. So even if we cut that 822 down to 600, not introducing that many fawns is what's been happening for decades in Sagaponic. And that's why we have a deer problem. Because a lot of guys are out there shooting male deer. The guys that do nuisance hunting, you have one or two guys, they get tired. I mean, by the time it gets to February, nobody really wants to go out in the cold anymore and try to shoot a deer at 1 o'clock in the morning. They're not being paid for it. It's exhausting to try to do that. And a lot of those guys dump the deer in a hole and waste it. We don't dump any deer in the hole here. We take every single deer with it. We use every single deer in Sagaponic. So if you take that 822, right, and then you add it to your other deer, your reduction of deer is approximately 1,300 deer over 4 years. Not deer being born, and the deer that we've harvested. So that's kind of what we need to focus on and keep that going. I've gotten a lot less complaints, and also Rody and I were talking about this about a week ago. We're not seeing as many dead deer on the side of the road. And I'm not getting phone calls from people to say, hey, come get a deer out of the back of my yard. That used to be probably weekly, I would say, or more than weekly. This year, I would say it was once a month. Naira used to call me probably twice a week and say, there's a dead deer on my property, can you come get it? And that's because she's on Sagmain, one of the fastest roads in Sagaponic. The deer would get hit and they'd end up trying to make it across the field to the swamp and they wouldn't make it. So I'm seeing less and less of that. And that's what you know, that's your measures of success. Say, okay, we know how many deer we're taking. We know how many are not being born. We know that we're getting less calls to have deer removed by the DOT on the side of the road. Homeowners don't often call me here, obviously. A lot of times they don't come till summer. You know, a very unique situation in Sagaponic. But that's what we need to focus on. Become 27. Times that by the 300 deer you have here. That's how fast the population comes back.
So if I can ask a quick question, if there are as many fawns as there are bucks, or doe as there are bucks, is there a hunter aversion to taking doe? Is there a reason?
Okay.
Yeah, is there a reason why they would avoid the female?
Yeah, they don't have
They don't have
horns.
horns.
Oh, that's the preference. Oh, I see.
It's, I mean, there's a,
Trophy hunt, okay.
it's trophy hunting, and there's nothing wrong with trophy hunting. If you look at the Indians, you know, the Indians like the feathers of the bald eagle. They like the antlers, they like the biggest buffalo. It's harder to kill an old buck. Well, an old doe and an old buck are just as hard to kill. You can't tell which is old and which is young in a doe, unless you look at it closely. The antlers on deer make hunters want to come.
Oh, okay.
And the value of that is, I don't often get into this, but I tell the hunters, you can take a buck, but you have to take 5 to 10 does to be able to take a hunt.
Mhm.
So we use this big antler deer in Sagaponic. And people know that. There's a lot of hunters that come here to hunt just for the bucks. But if you're in this program and I have a camera and I see 6 does walk by my camera and I know you're in the tree because you set it up and you don't take a doe, you're out of the program. And they know that. They know there's a camera sitting there. They know does are coming by and they want to hit the big buck. But if they don't shoot a doe, they can't come back tomorrow. So I use the big buck as bait for the hunters.
Got it.
It
Okay.
works well.
Human being. right?
Human being, right, bait for humans. So,
Persuasion,
I'm sorry?
persuasion.
Yes, persuasion, and again, there's nothing wrong with it they've been doing that their whole lives. A lot of duck hunters want to shoot a beautiful pintail duck. It's what they do. As long as they eat the deer, I don't care whether it's horns or not. But with the does, it's important again to make sure that we manage these female deer and male deer. They have 2 buck tags apiece, and I ask them, please use them both in Sagaponic. So we have 935 parcels in Sagaponic. Right now, 111 are being used for hunting. And that's significant. To be able to do that and get that many, that's the most I have of any of the villages that I've ever managed or seen. And it's continually going up because people aren't seeing problems. Hunters aren't creating issues with residents. We're out of here before the beginning of May. Those are the things that we've done to gain the trust of the homeowners. And some people come and go. Some people say, you know what, it didn't work out for me. I'm not going to have you hunt this year. And 3 more people will say, please come hunt my property. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I've watched, the ebbs and flows. And during COVID, a lot of people said, please don't hunt during COVID. I understand. People were in the houses. How many times do people sell houses in Sagaponic? They'll have to find the new owner, see if they understand hunting. Do they allow it? Do they not? So that's my job. I deal with it at no extra cost. It's part of the program. Okay, so no properties. Tick-borne diseases. It's pretty hard for me to manage how many people in Sagaponic have Lyme disease. If you ever wanted to put an anonymous email out and ask, we can do that. And then, compare that to other areas. But that's, it's kind of private information. A lot of people don't ask for it. Native vegetation, ornamental trees and plant damage, crop damage. I mean, obviously we know what the deer are doing here. Public dissatisfaction, when people aren't happy with what's going on. I like them to let me know. The exact number of deer here, I'm looking at 200 to 275 back in October. We took a bunch of deer. And now how many are going to be born? How many are going to come in from Bridgehampton? How many are going to come in from Wainscott? This is one of the most important things. We talk about harvesting deer. The next most important thing is displacement of deer. Obviously, this is your village. If I push deer over to Bridgehampton, do you mind? Because
As long as they don't come back.
that's right, as long as they don't come back. What we have to do is it's managing hunting pressure. I'm getting calls now from Wainscott because the deer are increasing. That's my fault. Sorry. But when you didn't have hunting, when it was just sporadic hunting, it's a lot of hunting in Bridgehampton. There's a fair amount in Wainscott. They push the deer into Sagaponic. That's why the deer increase in numbers. Not because they're having babies that fast, they're having 2 per fawn, but they come in. When we start hunting, deer know that a deer was shot here because they can smell blood that's long washed away by rain. A deer can smell it. They have a gland in between their toes called an interdigital gland. When a deer runs, it leaves that scent on the ground of fear. So if a wolf chases a deer, the next deer that comes, they can smell the ground and say, "Oh boy, I shouldn't be here." That's nature's way of leaving a calling sign saying, "Don't be here." We are the wolves, and we are pushing the deer out of Sagaponic or harvesting them. So the deer actually know that there's hunting going on here. So they went from being lawn ornaments to being fearful prey. I mean, that's what you want. You want them to be deer. You don't want them to be, feed out of your hand, a piece of lettuce. We've done that in Sagaponic and made them nervous about hunters because it's getting harder to get a deer. It used to be easy. I'll just go see a deer come. Now the deer come and they're all kind of spooky. We want that. And that's what we've done in Sagaponic. Go look at the field in Bridgehampton, just on the other side, like almost as if you drew a line in Sagaponic. Look how many deer on the other side of that field. All my guys call me up and say, hey, can we hunt that? I said, nope, that's Bridgehampton. That's us doing that. That's us pushing them away. And displacement is as important as harvesting is. Okay.
Don't go to work for Bridgehampton.
Bridgehampton. That's it. Yeah, it's too dispersed, and they'd have to focus a lot more for that to happen. It's a town of Southampton. Yeah.
They
It's not a
don't
village.
exist as a village like we
Right.
do, right?
I only work for villages and homeowners associations, and it's because I get support. I've had towns say, "Yeah, go do that." I won't do that. I don't want to be having conversations that I don't get backing for it. Here's my sightings per hour. So this is written out text, but you'll be able to see it as we scroll down to the chart. So kind of scroll down. A little more about deer fencing and what I found out. Okay, these are the properties. What I do in Sagaponic, I try not to identify a property individually, especially I used to do that. Now I go, Daniel's Lane from this number to this number, or Hedges from this number to this number. So it could be any one of those houses in that area. So I break down I break down Sagaponic basically by the road and the houses within that section. So you're not identifying each particular resident. I've had people in other villages be approached by non-hunters and felt uncomfortable by that. So I chose not to use their exact address so people feel more comfortable with it. So if we scroll down, and here's the numbers. I read from here. 1.99, 0.79, 0.69, and 0.62 or 4. Tell me what they hold. 0.62. That's sightings per hour. So that number is slowly decreasing. And that's what's telling me that the deer numbers are dropping. Because at any given time, you can count the deer, but 30 deer literally might swim across Bridge Lane, the water lane, and then come back the next night. This is over time by large numbers. On 1,600 hours, that's how many hours this data was collected by. That's what you want. You want laws of large numbers to really understand what's happening and how it's happening. The first year, I really couldn't tell. But I can tell you, when you look back at that report, 1.99 sightings per hour is the highest number of deer sightings per hour that I've ever seen, that any area on Long Island has ever shown. And we took that from 1.99 to 0.62 in 4 years. Now it's getting to a normal, deer population as established by the DEC and what they see per hour. Okay?
Where's Ocean Breeze Lane?
That's off of, that's Doctor's.
It's the private, yes, it's a subdivision off of Hedges.
Hedges, it's right off
Yeah.
Hedges.
It's a private road.
That's the biggest.
So
Well, one of the biggest.
one of the big, it's a big piece of property, goes all the way down, so a lot happened.
Hedges is the biggest, Don.
And those deer hedges, I watched them come out of Potato Road. They cross the old Galvan field. They come up through, some split toward you, and they go across Fairfield Pond, and others go up into Old Barn and across that field and up to Herb Court. It's all the same deer. And I have hunters in each one of those spots, as you'll see, and they basically radio in, okay, 7 are coming this way. They're on this road now, and they move through the neighborhood.
See, not counting them twice and 3 times and 4 times.
The reason why we do sightings per hour is so that we don't count 2 or 3 times. And if we radio through, we don't. If you drive around, you could count 900 deer, but those deer move.
Yeah.
We know that they moved, and I know that they're there, so I can prevent counting the same deer multiple times. And when a hunter sits in a stand, Don's backyard, and says he saw 25 deer. I said, no, you didn't. You saw the same 4 deer come back 5, 6 times. And I said, was it a doe, a spike, an 8-pointer, and another doe? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, that's what Don told me was there. And so I kind of know, I look at the numbers. I'm a geologist by trade and education before this. So I look at data and understand data. And I'll look at the highs and the low on a bell curve type thing. and I crop the edges so that we get real data and not just data from the edges that may be someone that doesn't quite understand how to count deer. So where are we up to? Okay, goals and recommendations. Keeping the hunting pressure high, that's what we're doing. We're in good shape. I'm getting calls from Wayne Scott and I can see the deer over in Bridgehampton and it's ridiculous. Continue to update our database. Review results with you guys. Increase hunting hours. Okay, basically I try to keep increasing the hunting hours until we start getting less and less deer. That is your diminishing return. So once I see that, I haven't quite seen it yet. I think there's an inflection point coming, but that's exactly what I'm looking for, is if we could increase up to 2,000 hours of hunting, and we're not getting any more deer. That means there's individuals sitting out there not seeing anything, which is not so good for them that day, but really good for us. Getting more properties. Our goal right now is 250 properties. That's what I would like to see spread out throughout Sagaponack. That's basically 25% of all the properties in Sagaponack, or parcels, I should say, for some property, multiple parcels. If we can get that, then I have enough properties to place hunters. And if the wind is from the east, which isn't common, the deer act differently. Half of the hunting spots are no good. If the wind is from the north, half of them are no good. Wind is from the south. So as the wind changes, I have to determine what spots to send people, so we don't waste their time and, educate the deer. We want really dumb deer. Unfortunately, they're not. This is my hunter registration. Just so you know, I have driver's licenses. That's what an ID card looks like. The trucks, so I know what trucks they have. I have their hunting license. Their arrow. Again, that's extremely important. If I find an arrow in the field, I go to my database and I type in what brand of arrow, it drops 190, 200 down to 50. I look at the length of the arrow, it drops it down to 25. Next thing you know, I have 5 guys that I can say, whose arrow could it have been? We've never had an issue here. And I'll say what happened in North Haven. There was an arrow found sticking out of a house. And DEC called me. In 7 minutes, I had every single person that hunted within the last week in that area and all the information given to the DEC. When I got the picture of the arrow, I said, it's not my guys. He goes, how do you know someone just didn't use the same arrow? I go, it doesn't happen. I go, arrows like using a shoe size, but really more particular. I said, why don't you check the cameras on all the houses that in the area? They checked the cameras and there was a gray pickup truck and that license plate didn't match any of the license plates that I had. And it turned out it was somebody who was technically a poacher in the area. We were able to figure that out 7 minutes up front, save the DEC and the police a whole bunch of work. And then within the following week, we were able to show that it was none of my program registered hunters. So those are the things that I care about. Those are the things that you guys should care about. That's why we have a program. So that everybody is responsible, I'm responsible, and if something happens, we could find out like that, exactly who, where, what, and how, and make sure you guys look like you have something that's tangible here. This first map basically shows where the deer are and how they move. I divide Sagaponack into different zones. So when I'm talking about it with the hunters or here, I measure each zone basically by size and deer flow.
Zone 2, you don't have very many deer in there. Is that because you don't have the parcels?
It's because I didn't have that much information. Right. So zone 2, there was a lot of properties that were, I guess they were fields, right? There's Foster Fields and stuff like that in zone 2 there. And I don't have a lot of people there because I'm not allowed to be there. So I wouldn't have the information to tell you where the deer are going and where they're not. I believe is that Fairfield Pond up there up to the right?
No, that is Parsonage Pond.
I meant to say Parsonage Pond.
That's
Okay.
Parsonage.
Parsonage Pond, I'll say Michael Davis called me and said, how do I get your help here? And that's exactly what I want people to do. And I said, okay, call all of your neighbors. Tell them I'm available to help. So since then, about 8 or 9 of those properties are now available for us to hunt. However, a lot of them are fenced on the north side. So as good as the property looks, you go there and all of a sudden there's a fence and deer aren't using it. But I won't say the name, but the lower southwest corner of Parsonage Pond now is an area that we hunt probably twice to three times a week. So I could add another deer showing, I'm not sure where they come from because I don't have the properties around it, but I know there's a lot of properties in Parsonage Pond, and 8 or more residents have said, please come hunt my property, and you'll see a lot of that this upcoming year.
I live there,
Do you?
well,
Okay.
not in Parsonage Pond, but on Parsonage Lane,
Okay.
and there are a lot of deer.
Right, and there's also a lot of deer because we're hunting zone 3 more than zone 2. So deer, again, move away from hunting. So it didn't surprise me that it took a year or two, or 3 years almost, to get calls from Parsonage Pond. All of a sudden, people said, why are there so many deer? It's because we're pushing them in there. And now we're in there, and now we're pushing them out, and they're not gonna stay because of our presence. Okay, scroll down, please. Okay, one more. Oh, okay. Okay, this, it's hard to see here. Each one of those little red dots is a hunting location. So you can see I wanted to try to display this. It's kind of hard in map wise, but it shows you how well dispersed it is throughout Sagaponic. Last year or the year before, remember how hard we were talking about earlier, trying to get up here, trying to get the top side and bottom side. I think we increased the number of properties by 60, I missed that statistic, 62% this year. So it's amazing. In an area like this, where the states like we have here, people are understanding what we're doing. We've been doing this for years without issue. So some people sat back and watched and said, oh, let's see what happened. And after 4 years, more and more people are getting involved in what we're doing, helping me help you guys. And this is kind of an example of, it went from just a lower left-hand corner, then just along Daniels Lane, then a little bit up to the north and west. Now it's spreading across Sagaponic.
Oh,
And what I did to do this,
yeah, no, I read.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, John.
No problem. I'm stepping in. Is rather than block out the exact property I'm using, so that someone could look up their personal name and maybe they have a conflict with it, that's just someone dropped on the property, but not showing exactly which property it is. So each one of them is, and it could be up at the mailbox or it could be in the back of the property, but each one of those represents a property without me stating the exact address of that property. This is foilable, this is all freedom of information. So as we grow the program, I try to make it more possible for a homeowner to call in, use this service, and not feel uncomfortable that someone might say, hey, I can't believe you're hurting a deer. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. And it seems like, we've flown under the radar and it's worked well. Go down one more, we have another. Okay, this is what I do just to kind of let you know how the hunters understand where to go. I think 543 actually sold, so we actually don't use that property anymore. But the lower left-hand corner is a picture of the deer being there. The yellow highlighted piece is actually the property that's supposed to be on, where the truck is supposed to park and where the stand is. So when they get this from me, when I say, okay, go hunt here. So they know exactly where to park, exactly where to hunt, what property they should be on, and what it looks like when they get there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if they make a mistake, they don't get to come back. There's no 3 strikes, you're out. It's one time. And I try to make it as simple as possible that this is the way it should look.
What's double red mean? There's two, both of them are within red.
Okay. The other property is John Papa John. We have that property too, but this person was going to 543.
Oh, I see. Next one.
So if they were going to Papa John, the other property would be highlighted and that's where they'd be going. This helps them because if they shoot a deer and it runs onto the next property, they're not as upset, oh, how do I deal with this? They know they're allowed to go get it.
Okay.
So the hunters know by seeing this, I'm supposed to hunt on the yellow and I can walk over to the other place and go get it. Anything I missed, Brody, that
I think you covered it all
we
there,
not
John.
discussed?
John, I have a question. When you you mentioned, and I wasn't aware of this in all these years. When you get a call, you will go to some property owner's backyard if the deer is injured or hurt or something, and what do you use to dispatch it if little old Millie doesn't want to hear a gunshot?
It's always a bow.
John, tell them to go in the house.
It's always a bow.
It's a bow.
Oh, it's a bow.
I use a bow and arrow. A lot of times if it's.
You don't have, I get what I'm getting at, you don't have a needle with a.
Well, the problem is with the needle. You have to get really close. You have to get really close to the deer.
Yeah.
And the needles, once you give the injection to the deer has to be incinerated because it's got a chemical in it. If your dog goes and if that deer, let's say we take it, and we bury it in the woods, and your dog digs it up.
Bald eagle gets it.
Yeah, that actually prevents the deer from being eaten, and it could cause, death to a dog if it ate it. So we choose not to do that if it's and I have the permits to use the bow. So let's say it was in your backyard. I have a permit right now on me to go with a bow and dispatch a deer. I don't have a permit, although I have veterinarians that are on this program with me. So yes, I could get that needle and go use it. It just becomes more problematic. Now the deer is toxic waste.
I was going down Daniels Lane and the police officer, this is, I'm gonna say last year, maybe in this past fall. But there was a police officer on the scene. The deer was on the side of the road, still alive, but obviously shocked out and ready to go. And the police officer was a female and didn't want to shoot the deer. I understand that, they're a little leery about it. But then a white car pulled up, a little white foreign car pulled up, and it was young blonde gal got out, and she had gotten sent there by the police, and she gave him a shot, and then she removed him.
Yeah.
But I don't know who she was.
It's Jane. It could be Jane, it could be Wendy, it could be, there's a few other people that run.
Maybe it was, that sounds familiar, Wendy, maybe.
Chamberlain.
There's, and I've met with them and all, there's animal rescue groups that can go do that.
I think that's what she was.
Who's Jane? She's the real estate.
Jane Gill.
Jane Gill, yes.
And it's fine.
I mean, she was obviously, she had the stuff and a shot and everything, but I had never, usually years ago, a cop would put it down and go.
They still do these and they shoot him in the shoulder, they just go up the gun and shoot him right in the shoulder, they wait for it to die and.
But I wasn't realize that you guys do that, so if we find one that's dead, you'll remove a dead deer also.
Around with dead deer, I had to take one out, that was 3/4 rotted, we actually use sleds, so we don't have to touch it. So we get it, we put it on a sled and we end up getting rid of it. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay.
But with the.
It's good to know. I have your cards if
Yeah.
I find 2 or 3 a year.
And sometimes they just go away. A lot of times, like on high fastest property, way in the back in the marsh, you'll find them, they literally disintegrate and they're part of nature. It's just when it's in view, it's in someone's backyard and the kids are there. Call me up, we'll go get it by, usually by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, we're here.
Okay.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You
I
said
never thought recorded.
you don't track limes or whatever, but when you have the dead deer, do you see a lot of ticks on them?
I do. And I do tick counts also. North Haven has 4 posters and they apply permethrin to a deer's neck while it's eating in a kind of a machine. It's like rollers. And what I'll do is I'll count the number of deer, count the number of ticks on those deer versus a deer that's not in North Haven to see if the 4 posters are actually working. You don't have 4 posters here.
I don't know what 4 posters is.
It's an applicator of permethrin that kills ticks.
Okay. And I don't know what
It's a bait station.
The deer go to the corn, and when they put their
I
head through,
see.
the rollers go on them and puts this
Yeah.
pesticide out.
So there's so
Yeah.
are there ticks in Sagaponic? Yes, there are. It's even the 4 posters are very controversial, whether you want them or not. There's all kinds of different things. They cost a ton of money.
So how many more do we have, be honest?
How many more what?
Ticks on the deer than,
We have more than North Haven, but less than East Hampton and western areas. Like, you know, in Manaville, you don't go in the woods, or in the hedge, you just don't go in the woods. I grew up walking through the woods as a kid, living in Montauk. And we used to go lay in the dunes and just lay down and relax and watch the planes fly. And on, you know, Helen used to run the airport over there. We used to walk down the runway and go lay in the bushes. And I remember probably 20 years old. I've been doing this since I'm 5. All of a sudden, I got these little blue dots on me and they're moving around. And I went into the salt water, I rubbed sand on it, got them off. And it turns out they were Lone Star nymphs.
oh dear.
And since then, I'm 50 now, so for the past 30 years, the number of those ticks spread throughout, you know, the island. And East Hampton is tagged deer that I saw here. So I know the village of East Hampton deer come into Sagaponic. So I've seen these ticks multiply in my lifetime, and I know where to walk in the woods and I know where not to walk in the woods. I've never had Lyme's disease. How? I don't even think this is funny. But I've been bit thousands of times. Why I don't have it, I don't know. I actually spoke to a doctor once and he says it's possible that you're immune to it. They've been bit so many times. I never had babiosis, never had any of those other diseases, but they're here. People get them and deer carry the tick over fences, through properties and long distances. Yes, it's a mouse that also has it, but when you're talking about a deer and their ears are heavy with ticks, those deer from literally East Hampton Village, a deer from Amagansett, I've seen deer tags in Amagansett that went through East Hampton and are seen here. So an Amagansett deer can walk to Sagaponic and bring ticks from there. So I don't think any of us are safe from it. Reducing the number of deer and, you know, being careful when you go in the woods. Don't go in the woods in August. That's the hatch. That's when all these nymph or the Lone Star tick larvae are born. I guess the eggs hatch. And I just know how to avoid it and when to avoid it.
How are walking dunes in Montauk? Don't go.
Don't go off the sand.
Yeah.
You can walk through the hills and all through that. You can go, just don't go off the sand. You know, stay on the trail. And the grass is the worst. They're all on the ends of the grass. And I just wouldn't do it from August 2nd to September 2nd. I want to be going to the woods. I'll sit in my car and watch.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, John.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Welcome.
John.
Welcome.
Is the proliferation of deer fencing making it easier or more difficult for you?
I don't know yet. It's a lot of it's going up. I mean, in other areas, it's made it easier. Because the deer can't go in that field anymore and they walk along the fence. So the hunting actually becomes easier with it. But what it does do is the deer don't have that field anymore. And that field might have been, a biomass that fed 100 deer. I personally was in Fire Island and I fed a deer for an hour. It was a big male deer. I fed him a zucchini this big. I gave him a head of lettuce. He ate the whole head of lettuce. I have, the Costco things of grapes. He ate the whole thing of grapes, sticks and all. I fed this deer everything. We were moving out that day out of the beach house. I fed him everything we had in the refrigerator. And he ate and stood there looking at me after he ate. And I thought I knew about deer. So think about a milk crate that filled to the top. The deer ate it all. So to think what a deer can actually eat, and then times it by 270.
Wow.
So that deer fencing, you're not noticing, the farmer's noticing it, you're not noticing it. But when that one deer needs to eat, maybe not that much, but a good amount, your hostas, your everything can get wiped out. And that's what you're gonna say.
So it's good to have those small properties.
Small properties matter because that's what the deer walk across. And if I'm on the big property, they'll literally walk around me. And also I put one guy there as the wind bait, I let the wind blow this way, he doesn't know that he's not gonna see anything. And then I put a really good hunter over here, so it walks around that guy and he gets to hear. So, I think,
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
you're welcome, you're welcome.
You, Lisa, you
I'm
gonna
gonna,
go?
I have to go,
I have to
sorry.
go at 5 also.
And Marilyn has left the meeting. I think she left about 4, so.
Well,
Good seeing you, Mike.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
We gotta do everything we gotta do.
That's all right. All the votes.
Sorry, guys, thanks.
Oh, Lisa, you're leaving immediately? Can you stop in tomorrow, or
I
can you
can
do this?
give it to you now and I'll put,
Okay.
I'd say, I think there might be 6. I can do my name 6 times.
What do you?
Go
do?
ahead, Donna, just, that's done. Yes, I know. I am done, I can't. I'm gonna multitask here. Thank you. Okay, John. Take it away.
Did you pave? It's all done.
Just if you could pop back up to the minutes, we only have one set, April 13th. I haven't finished April 20th yet.
We'll do this next month. Resolution to adopt local law, pickleball. If nobody has any questions, I'd like to get a resolution to adopt that law. Somebody resolve.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Aye. Let's see, were there any other votes?
Not in that one. Now we have
Okay,
to.
assembly permits.
I need the resolution to set the public, end of the fiscal year meeting done
Here, is that?
for its new business scheduling. Fiscal.
Oh, yeah, well, it tells me to schedule it, but it doesn't tell me
Yeah,
when.
I'm sorry, it's May 31st. You had talked about last week at 10 o'clock.
May 31st.
it says Tuesday.
At 10
At
a.m.
10 o'clock?
Yes,
And wait, what's this for?
end of the fiscal year.
Clear the
meeting.
books.
Oh,
You need a motion on that, or is it just set?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to move that we schedule an end of the fiscal year meeting,
All right, May 31st at
May
10.
31st, 10 a.m.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Assembly permits. Harry, you want to make a
we're all set
resolution?
with that. Okay.
For all three of
I
them.
make a motion for the Sagaponic Horse Show July 20th, the Sagaponic Horse Show August 10th, and the large Long Island Gala August 6th with the special event permit applications.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
I need an authorization to sign the municipal new contract for $39,700.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. What is reviewing the local law?
Well, you had already set the public hearing,
Yes,
and so now you have before you the draft and the policies. So they're there. I've sent them to you. If you have any issues with them, let Brian know, and if there any language needs to be changed. I've already set the public hearing for June 8th.
Correct. No action necessary today.
Right.
June 8th. Okay. Do you want us to set the public hearing?
You've already did that. You did that last week, but this is the actual laying of the document on the table.
All right. What action, if anything, is needed on the MS4 report?
Nothing other than you accept it.
I don't even know what that is.
None of us do.
That's not unusual. Well,
Certainly is,
This is a bureaucratic
BS.
performance that is,
I mean, it's
it's
like.
for the health of Sagpon.
Overwhelming.
Yes.
Oh, really? Yes, that's what it's all points to.
and it lists all the things we could possibly think of that
Yes.
we are doing to ameliorate the situation,
Mhm.
none of which cost any money.
Okay. Except for my time.
Yeah, and that's expensive.
You just need to have that approved, right? Just
Right,
approval
just a
of the MS4
motion to
report.
accept the document.
Oh, you,
Yeah,
okay,
do a
can I
motion
get
to-
a motion to accept the?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Now I send it off to DEC and everybody's happy.
we adopted it. Claims review. Anybody have any review of any questions on the financials?
Nope.
Okay, then let's pass the individual appropriations. I need a motion from the general fund, 49,834.27. Do I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tree fund, $33,285. Do I get a motion?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Planning trust and agency account, $732.20. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Capital
Aye.
highway fund, 929,785.73. Is that it? And the story for
That
Hazel
is-
Lane?
Right, that's the Rosemar's bill and Bill, that was in his pile to review. Jim Peterman signed off on it. And as you see, Bill, there was a $55 discrepancy, which was corrected. So yes,
Okay.
it's been.
Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. While we're on that,
Okay, that was good.
I think that riprap was put down in front of Goldman's property on Daniels Lane is really atrocious.
Well, they did plant over top of it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Not in that area.
No.
You talking about that?
It looks like it's
Big
something just
drainage.
dumped riprap there.
Well, we did.
But what's the point? What's the purpose of it?
The purpose was
Drainage.
for the drainage.
Oh, no.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
If you
for the
remember,
drainage. So instead of making a puddle there,
it goes
it
into,
goes
On the side of the
in
road.
between the rocks.
yes,
What's the point?
it gets it off the road.
No, it's going off the road anyway.
Right.
I think it slows down the drain, the flow towards the ocean too, so it doesn't wash out. Slows
Well,
down.
You mean so it
point-
doesn't go on Mr. Goldman's property?
Yeah, well, so it doesn't erode his property.
Well, the point, Don, is that if you just put the grass there, it gets tamped down, and so then the drainage isn't as good. When you put the riprap in, it maintains the permeability in the area.
Well, then we should
When we
put
did
it
that,
all
John-
over the village.
Well, that's where we put the French drains in. So if you don't like it, if you think it needs to be changed, then,
I don't care.
okay,
It's just really
we're gonna have to live with it.
ugly.
Because that's what you didn't like down by, on the other end, and that's why we had
I know,
that
We
change.
did not do it.
So, well, they did do it, but we had them change it.
Yeah.
So if you want it to be changed, just let me know, and I'll let Jim know, and you can give us a price on changing it.
I'll let our Daniels Lane residents worry about that.
Okey dokey.
Okay, we've set the end of year meeting.
Yep.
Uh,
We did.
Please. Our next meeting is June 8th, at 3 p.m. Questions from the floor? Brian, you had a couple of things you want to report to the village on.
Yeah, I know we're pressed for time, so I'll keep this very, very short.
No, we got
Okay.
20 minutes.
Okay, anyway.
You can blather for 20 minutes.
I am Irish, but I won't take that long. I did hear back from the property owner or the agent, of the property owner to Town Line Road. That's the property at the end of the road on Town Line, with the fence that was way over our property.
At the end of the
So what is
beach.
the
At the end of the beach, yep. So, originally I thought it was gonna be adversarial, turned out to actually be fairly cooperative, although they haven't started it yet. The first call was, what's this all about? After they ignored our first letter, second letter, they got their attention where we said, look, let me know in 30 days or I'll see you in Riverhead. then we got a call and they said, what do we, you know, the previous owner did that. I'm sure that they did, but here's the survey, here's where your fence line, you have to move this over. So they went today and said that they're gonna do it. They were just asking us what we were gonna do on our side of the road. So I don't think we finalized those plans yet. So, right. So, okay, we're not gonna install parking or anything like that.
No.
Right, okay. So that was a
My
positive.
successor.
Yeah, okay. So that was a positive development. Now we'll just stay on them to make sure that they actually do it. One other outgrowth from the Whispering Oaks, I'm sorry, Marilyn's not here. But if you see any of the Southampton Town Planning Board, there was a lot of taking my name and the Village of Sagaponic's name in vain as we put in the request to keep the clearing limit to 35%.
And who was doing the calumnies?
Yeah, the planning board.
Can you just bring Carrie up to stuff?
What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
So on the Whispering Oaks subdivision, when that was approved,
That's up near Glenwood, Scottsdale.
Scott
Scott Line Road,
Town Line, Winscott Harbor Road, that's the subdivision in there.
there were planning board covenants that were put on a limited maximum clearing that they could do on the
Okay.
property. They limited it to 25%. The Village of Sagaponic has no clearing limits. You can clear 100%. One of the property owners made a request to lift that 25% clearing limit. My supposition is they cleared more than the 25%. We had to legalize that to do whatever construction they were going to do. The covenants put on by the planning board could only be lifted by the town planning board. The town planning board. It's just this subdivision was approved before the incorporation of the village in 2005. So they had it, even though the property, this is where it gets goofy, even though the property is in the Village of Sagaponic, they had to make application to the town planning board to lift the town planning board covenant to 25%. We clarified that we had no objection once it went up to 35%, but didn't go more than that. There was a bit of a give and take because the town thought, well, that was awfully rich because the Village of Sagaponic has no clearing limits. So how can you say 35% while you should really go to 100%? I worked it out with the applicant's attorney that will not object to beyond 35%. Beyond that, we would object to anything and you should revert back to 25%. The outgrowth of the conversation was that with the town attorney's office was whether the Village of Sagaponic would be willing to enter into an IMA or memorandum of understanding, intermunicipal agreement or memorandum of understanding, an MOU with the town to enforce those covenants.
Absolutely.
So I thought that that was a good solution that I'll credit, if it's being broadcast, Assistant Town Attorney Christine Scalera her and I creatively came up with that. Number one, it's a dramatic expansion of the powers of the village. It also gives the power to where it should be, as we are the now planning and zoning authority in this area. It would be logical for people to come to us for the relief. So I think that might be a good opportunity. And what I would propose is between the town attorney and I, we work on that agreement and then propose it to this board.
Have you seen the special legislation that Fred Thiel got
Yes.
for us?
Yes.
That does not cover this.
No.
That's only on reserved.
Correct. Acquired properties. I read it. It's a very unusual limitation of that General Municipal Law 254. It was obviously trying to solve one problem that Rhodey and I talked about. Rhodey, thank God for all the history. Rhodey brought me up to speed on what that was, but it was limited to that. It wasn't more expansive on the authority. So this may be a very good opportunity for us to assume as successors the town's authority on these properties.
Why don't we have clearing?
Because really, I remember when the zoning commission was doing zoning, it was really decided that there were no potential subdivisions left
That's the
in
town's
any
perspective.
in any of the wooded areas.
That's the town's perspective of why we didn't have it. That's what they thought. They were like, Sagaponic doesn't have any more subdivisions.
So there was really nothing we had jurisdiction over. But we, I think, also stupidly assumed that the town covenants that had been placed on all these lands would be forever.
Right, correct. And now my supposition is with one applicant wanting that relief from 25 to 35.
They're all gonna go.
Right.
Just like-
So we might as well get control over us here at Village Hall while we can. And we have a receptive town that's receptive to it, which I think is a great opportunity for us.
It's great, yeah.
Okay, so I'll pursue that. Hopefully I'll have an agreement within the next 30
I mean,
days.
we have enforced it, and somewhere we have a clearing restriction that John was telling me about.
Our restriction is you can't clear more than 2,000 square feet of your property unless it's connected to a building. If you want to clear more than 2,000 square feet, then you have to come
You have
for
to develop.
site plan review. Yes, but if you've got a building permit in place, you can clear the property from corner to
Well, we
corner.
have enforced that, and I think it's the same guy who's Wayne Boone. Is that the same property where we made him revegetate?
No, that Wayne wasn't the attorney.
Oh,
on
excuse me,
that.
that was a Farrell lot.
Those were Farrell's.
This guy bought the Farrell lot.
Right, well, Farrell bought the lots
Well,
and then cleared them before he got his building permit. And so we put the stop work order, and that's when he
right,
came
and
and made them
then he
re-veg.
wanted to get rid of
And
that.
then the Brian Mitchell, who bought one of his properties, wanted to get rid of the plantings, and he had to come back to us because he was changing the vegetation a little bit.
And we've also, the board's been very good and past decisions on individual approvals where you'll put that in, no more clearing beyond X, like some of the other pending resolutions we have, no more.
On site
variances.
plan reviews, we've done that, but
Yep.
we have nothing to cover this case. So
Correct.
now we will.
Yep.
Okay,
So I thought that was a big
so
step forward.
you and Christine are gonna draw.
Yes,
and
yeah, and I'll have it in the next, probably the next 2 meetings. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. This poor guy, who, people when they buy properties get surveys. And isn't the responsibility of their lawyers to tell them
What are your title to those?
that there's a encroachment here that should have to be cleared up, and the seller should pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Okay.
No?
No.
God, it goes easier with 3. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Good job.
Right on time.
Have you shut down the?
Just working on it.